Welcome to the Street Dog Podcast, brought to you by the Street Dog Coalition and by the cat on my lap today. We are a national nonprofit providing free veterinary care and related services to pets of people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. I am your host, Daria Tavana, and I'm also the Director of Development at the Street Dog Coalition. If you're tuning in live on Facebook, thank you so much. It's great to have you here. Let us know how you're doing today. Drop an emoji in the comments. Say hi. You know that we love to hear from you. Don't leave us hanging. And today, I guess I want to lead off with the question of something that we were just talking about, me and my special guest, who I'll introduce in a second. If you had the opportunity to evolve your business or evolve your lifestyle in a way that it would allow you to feel really fulfilled, maybe even spend more time with animals, maybe even spend more time doing what you love, how would that feel for you? What might that look like for you? And I'm asking you this question because today we have an incredible partner of our organization, a really special guest with us that through a series of life changes did just that. So Ralph Bernstein, who is owner of Downtown Dogs and Dogs Stay Out, experienced a life-altering event in 2011 when his wife tragically passed away from a stroke. This profound loss led Ralph to reevaluate his priorities and discover his true calling, which might be a bit similar to yours if you're listening to this podcast episode. So, recognizing the joy and sense of home he found at Downtown Dogs while dropping off and picking up his dog, Ralph did the thing. He purchased the business and expanded it in 2020 with the opening of Dogs Day Out. So today, Ralph is not only a content might be an understatement, small business owner, but also a dedicated board member of Mission Animal Hospital, the Midwest's first nonprofit veterinary hospital. So with Abby, his wife, and the 3 dogs by his side, Ralph embraces a fulfilling journey of compassion, family, and making a positive impact in the in the lives of animals and their human companions. Woo! Welcome to the podcast, Ralph.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yay! I am, we already talked about how cool that monkey hanging from your ceiling is. We already talked about how cool your hairdo is. We already
Yeah.
talked about all the things.
We didn't talk about my tattoos.
Oh,
Where are my tattoos?
cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's my sloth.
Oh, a sloth. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So you got to give us a quick run. What's the significance of the sloths? Slow and steady wins the race. Is it?
The funny thing is the significance of the sloth is that my wife suggested it. So I met my wife, my current wife. I met her in 2017, and she admitted to me that she never thought she would date, let alone marry a guy with tattoos. And in the time that we've known each other, she has seen me get more tattoos because I didn't get my first tattoo till I was 50. So
That's
uh,
awesome.
uh, yeah. And so one day and you have tattoos. So, once you get one, right, you're always itching for another one.
They're
And so,
everywhere.
yeah. And so I was saying, God, I don't know what I want. I don't know what. And we had gone somewhere not long before where we had gotten to hang out with some sloths. Like we actually got to put them on our
Oh,
lap. And so she said, why don't you get a sloth tattoo? So it was her idea. So the significance of the sloth is mostly that it was her idea, and she was the one who said, she never thought she would, date a guy or marry a guy with tattoos. So yeah.
that's amazing. I love that. And I'm laughing at one of our listeners, John Mark, who said that his roommate's nickname was sloth because he was never motivated to help clean a house.
Yeah. Well,
So
hopefully
I'm
that's
sure
not
that's
me.
not the case for you. I'm sure you're very helpful. You're very expedient in
Always,
everything that you do.
always.
So maybe Ralph, since I tried my best at the beginning of this episode, maybe you can kind of give us a brief rundown. Tell us a bit about yourself and your small business journey. I know it's been a journey, so lay it
Yeah.
on us.
Yeah. So you talked about it. So, I was in the corporate world. I spent the bulk of my adult life in the corporate world, mostly in banking. And I thought I was content, and then I got married. I had two, my wife and I had two children. I was born in New York. We lived in Baltimore for many years, and then my wife and I and my kids were born there. And then we moved to Minnesota. I came out to work here for a bank. And everything was going great, but always, even before this big life-changing event, always in the back of my head, I was never completely comfortable in the corporate world. I think, and temperamentally, I just not wasn't suited for it. I happened to be good at it, and so I sort of made a career there. And I had a plan, like people have a plan. I had a wife, I had two kids, I had a house, I had a mortgage, I had cars, I played golf, blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, in 2011, my wife had a stroke. She was 49. We have never known why. And
Mm.
5 weeks later, unfortunately, she had another one, and then she died. And uh, that's a pretty devastating thing to have happen to you. Um,
Wow.
and uh, for a while, I was home. I didn't go back to work right away, but one of the things that came out of that was, we had a dog, but my wife is a preschool teacher, and so her hours let her be home when the dog needed to go out and that kind of thing. Well, suddenly, that wasn't the case anymore, and I needed to go back to work. I worked long hours. I traveled quite a bit, so I needed to find a place to for the dog to go. My children were one of my sons was out of the house. The other one was almost out of the house, so they weren't really reliable. And so I found Downtown Dogs, and I went over and I took a tour, and I just loved the place. It just spoke to me. And so I started bringing my dog there, Franny, and my pug. And I was frequently the first person in the parking lot, the last person to pick the dog up. I boarded her quite a bit. And a couple of years later, so that was 2011, in 2013, I had reached a point where I realized that the corporate world wasn't it for me anymore. I just wasn't fulfilled at all, at all. And so I thought to myself, boy, what would I do if I could do anything? And I've always been crazy for dogs. My late wife used to say I was dog stupid, in that I was like a 5-year-old. I assume any dog I meet loves me and wants me to pet them. And so she would say to me, honey, you have to ask before you pet the dog, really, like I was 5 years old. And so I realized that, I would open a dog daycare. I thought to myself, God, I can't think of anything I would rather do. But then I thought, no, what I really love is Downtown Dogs. This burst of energy I would get when I would come through the door, and everybody would give me this big hello. And then when I pick Franny up in the evening, the same thing. And it was really the only bright spot of my day. And so on a whim, I picked up the phone and I called the person who owned Downtown Dogs, and I said, I have a crazy question for you. Would you ever be interested in selling your business? And she said, I have a crazy answer. Yes, I would. And so we talked on and off for about 6 months, and then we kind of came to an arrangement. And I bought the business in August of 2014, and I hung up my pinstripe suits and I traded them in for jeans and polo shirts. And I left the bank, and I've never looked back. And so that was 2014. So we're coming up on 10 years that I've owned the business, and 20 years that the business has been around. And it has been it's been great. It's been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done aside from family. I just feel like I have the best job in the world, because I get to be with the creatures that I love the most. I love dogs. I'm crazy for dogs. They fill me with joy. They my own dogs and everybody else's dogs. And I get to be with them all day, and I get to care for them, and I get to I get to make their lives a little bit better, or at least I get to make them comfortable. Uh and that's like, what could be better than that?
I
So
love that.
yeah, so that's how I got where I am.
I know that all of our listeners right now are just like giving you this intense clap. I don't want to clap in front of the microphone, but I know someone somewhere is giving you a standing ovation, because so often I think we, as individuals, we get these crazy, quote unquote, crazy ideas. What if we just took the risk? What if we just leaned into what we love? What if we just left behind stuff that is just not fulfilling to us anymore and feels like a relic from a former version of ourselves? And what you did was you took that leap of faith. And it sounds like you took it, and I'm sure you've had trials and tribulations, but it sounds like you took that leap with a smile on your face, and you've been smiling for the most part ever since. And
Yeah.
what's so inspiring to me, I really appreciate you getting personal, sharing your personal story with us. What's really inspiring to me is how you used, this incredible loss that you experienced, and it was almost this catalyst for you to not wait any longer to live this life that you wanted to live, not wait any longer to spend time with dogs, because who doesn't love spending time with dogs? And yeah, I just feel like your late wife would be so, so, so proud of you. And I mean, I did not know her. Who am I to make that assumption? But I'm going to make that assumption anyway.
It's a good assumption, and it goes even further in that my current wife Abby, she knew my late wife,
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
uh, and so uh, in fact she knew my wife better than she knew me, but we knew each other slightly, and so Abby and I talk all the time that um, there's no doubt that Stephanie, my late wife, had something to do with us getting together, because, and I believe that Stephanie, at some point looked and said, "Oh, you are not doing nearly as well on your own as you think you are. And so I need to step in here again and manage your life for you. So I'm gonna bring you and Abby together." And uh so it just, yeah, it
Wow.
just sort of rounds out that whole thing for me. And yeah, yeah. Except that now Abby and Stephanie gang up on me. Sometimes Abby, I'll be like, "I don't want to eat my broccoli," or whatever it is, and Abby will say, "Stephanie says you have to eat your broccoli." So
Okay, I love this. I am both very emotional and fully tickled at this. This is outstanding. There is
yeah,
some kind of like Hallmark Christmas movie amazingness
it
happening right here in this conversation.
it is a
It's so
little
cool.
it is a little bit, because the whole circumstance of us getting together, and we're not talking about dogs, I realize, but the whole circumstance of us, we are actually talking about dogs, because Abby is the first person, maybe the only person I've met who is as crazy for dogs as I am.
I love
And
that.
we met through online dating. We met again through online dating. I had put a toe in the water. She'd put a toe in the water. And my profile picture was me and my pug Franny. And she was looking at the profiles and she saw the dog and she said, "Hey, that's a really cute dog." And then she was like, "Wait, I think I know that guy." So, you know,
Oh,
no, everything in my life revolves around dogs somehow, including even meeting the person that I married. So
this is so cool. We need to bring you back for a second episode. Just to go over like dating after loss and using dogs as a chick magnet, if you
right,
will.
it was not my intent, but apparently it really happens. So
That's so cool. And I know you love dogs. We love dogs here at the Street Dog Coalition. As I'm sure you know at this point, our organization is full of veterinarians, vet techs, social workers, dog lovers, cat lovers even. I know.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, so I'm curious to know, maybe you can talk with us a little bit about your partnership with the
yeah,
Street Dog Coalition.
yeah,
Maybe you
yeah,
can
yeah.
tell us, how did you become such a clearly beloved partner to our organization, and maybe tell us a little bit about what your partnership entails.
Yeah, sure, 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 sure. So, we've been pretty fortunate. The business has done pretty well. We took it on the chin during COVID, like so many businesses, and dog daycare. Nobody was working in their offices. Nobody needed dog daycare, but we came through it. And I have always, and now with Abby, we've always just believed in giving back. And I know that sounds very self-serving and very highfalutin, but I truly believe that. And so, we started a program a few years ago called Change Unleashed. And it was our way of asking our clients to round up their purchases or to make a donation. And then we would pick a quarterly partner, and we would match those donations. And so we work with, various animal welfare organizations in the Twin Cities and around Minnesota. And then, and one of the organizations we work with is an organization here in town called People and Pets Together. And the cool thing about them is they have an animal food shelf, and we'd never heard of that before. And so we were visiting them, and we saw a flyer for Street Dog,
Oh, wow.
and so I asked about it, and so they were telling me about it. And I've always had a very I've always had a strong interest in how what happens for people experiencing homelessness when they have pets, because I think so often we barely treat those people with any respect to begin with, and then somehow we think that, like, they're not deserving of having a pet. That,
Oh,
if
yeah.
they're on the street, if they don't have a home, what are they doing having a pet? That blah 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 blah. And in fact, that might be their only companion. I think it was Stefan who said sometimes that pet is their home. And so, when I found out about Street Dog, I was just captivated by the idea that here was an organization that was doing this incredible work that is so important to me personally, to say, we have to care for the pets of these people, because both the people and their pets deserve the same respect as anybody else. And so we reached out to Stefan and we said, hey, we have this this program, and we'd like to make you, our next partner. And so we talked on the phone, and we just started promoting it. And we just had an event actually on Sunday, at our grooming business at Dog's Day Out. We had an open house that Stefan came, and we work with an animal caricature artist, who he himself donates some of what the money he makes to charitable causes. And so we raised some additional money for Street Dog by doing that. And so, we just promote Street Dog as much as we can. We tell everyone we meet that about this amazing organization that we partner with. We have materials all over our businesses, and we do whatever we can to support the organization. And one thing that we haven't done yet, but that I've been thinking about, and that I was going to talk to Stefan about, is we work with a number of rescue and foster organizations throughout the Twin Cities. We always, except in really super busy times of the year, we have excess boarding capacity, and there are always more dogs than foster programs have home for. So we give boarding nights, free or significantly reduced
Wow.
boarding nights to those dogs. Like last year in 2023, we had 100 dogs over the course of the year, and it was about 1,200 and something nights. I just did all of these stats for our holiday party. So it was like 3.5 years of boarding that we had for this year for all of these dogs. And we can do the same for people who are experiencing homelessness, where they maybe they're in a shelter, but their dog can't be in a shelter. And
Yeah.
the last thing we would want is for somebody to have to surrender a dog because of a temporary situation.
Mm.
So being able to make some of our boarding space available to those folks is something I would very much like to do. And so I'll be talking with Stefan about that
Oh,
pretty
that's
soon.
amazing. That's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't wait to check in with him and see how that goes. And
Yeah.
and
And my
and
staff, my staff loves it. My staff, um, I have a big staff. I have 25 people, and you don't do this work if you don't love dogs. So they're all dog crazy like me, but they love the fosters. I mean, many of my staff have become foster fails where, we've had fosters come in and then, they're like, I'm going to take that dog home. And then, that's it. It's their dog. So I don't think, many of my staff have dogs that came anywhere except out of a program like that. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's wonderful to hear, and I know that there are so many reasons, from seeking treatment, from with for addiction, leaving a situation at home, a domestic violence situation that's not healthy, needing to go into a shelter that doesn't allow animals, and uh, to me, giving individuals the opportunity to board their dogs without necessarily judging them, asking them too many questions, shaming them, or pressuring them to do something they don't want to do, is not only tremendously helpful to these individuals, life changing and life saving, but also I think from a systemic point of view is fantastic too, because then we don't have to overburden animal shelters any more than they're already burdened. So and these individuals don't have to necessarily reach back out to people in their lives, to ask people in their lives that they are disconnected from for whatever reason, to watch their animals. So
Right.
it's just the relief that you'd be able to provide, even more so than you're already providing with the partnership work that you're doing, I think would be tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, so you're not only a small business owner, a successful small business owner, you're also, and I think you briefly mentioned this before we hopped on, before we started recording, that you're a board member at Mission Animal Hospital. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, I've done my research. I'm curious to know, how do you see the intersection between your businesses and the mission of providing veterinary care for homeless, for unhoused individuals and their animals? How do you see, I guess my question for you here is, this intersection is clearly something you're passionate about. So how have you seem like such an engaging and inspiring person. How do you encourage others in your industry who also kind of live at this intersection to get involved with the charitable work that you do, whether it's with the Street Dog Coalition, Mission Animal Hospital? How do you cheerlead? Tell us.
Well, partially I do this. I mean, I talk about it as much as I can. We are fortunate in that we've gotten some nice press coverage in the last few years. And whenever that happens, I talk about, this aspect of the business because I don't want to talk about the business. I've always said I'm not a terribly good business person. I make decisions that somebody else might say that's a stupid thing to do. You're not going to make money, or you're not going to make as much money as you could. And I didn't go into this to make money. I went into this because I wanted to be happy again. And so, when I talk about the business, I like to talk about how we care for the dogs, and I like to talk about the other things we do and how we try and give back and we try and engage in the community. So when I get asked, that's what I talk about. Uh, when I go to places like, we have a quarterly mission board meeting and we have other events. I talk to the people I meet about the all of the organizations that we work with. And when I see my fellow dog daycare owners and my fellow grooming business owners, I try and talk to them about that. It's not, interestingly, it's not a terribly close knit community. I know I wouldn't say we're all arch rivals, but it's grown quite a bit. The dog daycare business in the Twin Cities has grown quite a bit since I got into this 10 years ago. And I think we're all busy, and so we don't see each other that often. But when we do, I talk to them about it, and because everybody could do what we're doing. I mean, anybody who has boarding could be offering free boarding nights to whomever they. But and I think I think I am particularly uh, sort of focused on this idea of how to help people experiencing homelessness with their animals, and for me, because of the business, their dogs. I think that is something that has always resonated with me, and I think part of it is, there was a time in my life. I'm not going to suggest that I was ever close to being homeless, but there was a time in my life when I lived paycheck to paycheck, and when one bad car repair or one bad tooth repair, meant really trouble for me financially. And, I've come a long way since then, but I never forget that. And so,
Mm.
uh, you know, we don't know, we don't know why people are experiencing homelessness, right? And we judge them without knowing anything about them. And I find that so offensive that we would do that. And so, to be able to do something for it, to overcome that, to combat um, that stereotype of people experiencing homelessness. And so, the more I can talk about it, the more I can talk to other people. So, I get people get tired of hearing me talk about it, but when they're like, "What are you up to these days?" I'm like, "Well, let me tell you."
Here's a
So,
PowerPoint
right,
presentation I have for
exactly,
you.
exactly. Strap in because we're going to be here a while because I'm going to tell you everything about it. So, but yeah. So I guess I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of how
No,
I.
you really did, and I really feel like, there are two things that we need in order to even begin um, reframing people's understanding about pets of people experiencing homelessness, about the homeless experience itself. And I think part of that is uplifting the stories of individuals with lived experience, letting them take the microphone, letting them share their truth, opening up this aperture of allowing people to hear their stories, which are so often silenced, so often disregarded, so that we can relate to these individuals because they are just like us. Like you said,
Yep.
you were, me too. So I think we not only need to uplift these individuals, allow them to share their stories, it's long overdue, but also, use every opportunity we can get as individuals without necessarily direct lived experience to uplift their stories, to talk about the hardships that they're facing so that other individuals in the fields that we work in are more understanding, are more compassionate, start to do their own research, start to maybe stop and have conversations on the streets with individuals who are unhoused. So I just really appreciate you saying that the least, it sounds like what you're saying is the least you can do is talk about it. The least you can
Right.
do is help to spread that awareness.
Right.
And then, of
Right.
course, you're going above and beyond just spreading that awareness. You're really
Well,
putting your money where your mouth is, and providing individuals who often have no other option with this safe space, with this service, with this
yeah.
opportunity
Yeah.
to, feel like themselves again, feel like people do care. I
Well,
love
and
that.
to take some stress away, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so if I mean, think about you're a pet owner. I'm a pet owner. Think how stressful it is for us when our animals are ill, when we don't know because they can't tell us, right?
Yeah.
That's the frustrating thing. Abby and I always laugh that we wish we could have a half an hour a month when the dogs could talk. And then, we would be like, so what's up? What's going on? What's bothering you? Actually, the first question I would ask is, why do you eat poop? But
Yes.
right? I mean, because I want to say to them, you don't see us doing that, right? Why do you do that? But but it's stressful for us, and we don't have the other stress of being unhoused, of not having an income, of all of those things. So take the stress we experience and then just put it on top of all that other stress, right? It's
Oof.
like it's like somebody's drowning and you hand them a cinder block, right? And
Yeah.
so so that is, if anything I do, helps remove that burden a little bit, that's great. Whether it's that I see someone in the street and I reach in my pocket and I give them some money, which we can have conversations all day long about the good and the bad of doing that. But when I see somebody who's unhoused and they have a dog, they're getting money from me
Oh, yeah.
because I want them to not have the stress of what am I going to do for my dog? How am I going to feed them? So if I can do something else, if I can work with street dog, if I can provide housing for their dog, I'm going to do that because I want to take away the stress that I can.
Mm,
I can't provide them housing. I can't solve that, but I can solve this, right? I can at least try to take that away. And why not? Why not?
yeah.
And also I still get to do what I love. So it's kind of self-serving for me too, I guess. But so be
Mm,
it.
that's fantastic. That it's this. So this actually leads right into my final question.
Yeah.
And this is a curveball question. I've been
Okay.
wanting to ask someone this question, but you seem like the perfect person to ask. So
All right. All right.
you're like, "Ooh, what is this question?" So if you could have a billboard, and if that billboard had one message on it, what would that message say?
Wow. How much time do you have? Because
Right? We have about 2 minutes left.
so honestly, I think if I had a billboard and I could only have one thing on it, I think the message would be everybody stop being so greedy.
Mm,
I
yeah.
think that if you boil it all away, most of the problems in the world, and certainly in this country, are come straight out of greed. We don't have a concept of enough in this country. It's a zero-sum game. I have to have it all and you have to have none.
Yep.
If I give some of my taxes to somebody else to support a program that supports other people, that means I don't have as much money and that's bad for me. It,
Mhm.
Even though I have plenty of money,
Right.
I can do whatever I want, but it's my money. I should keep it. And I shouldn't have to give any of it away to help anybody. It's all about greed. And so stop being so greedy.
Ah.
Stop needing more than you have. I have a sign on my door at work that says the secret of having enough is believing you already do.
Oh, I love that. I've
And
seen that somewhere before, and I've
yeah.
always been like, "Yes."
And so I think that would be my billboard, would just be stop being greedy. Just be satisfied with what you have.
Yes.
So yeah, yeah.
That's so beautiful. There's this, you and I need to have like a 10-hour conversation because we might be the same person. There
Cool.
is this like beautiful quote I always see. I don't know where I see it. I think I saw it at a yoga studio once, but it said, like that which you seek is already within you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think especially in this time right now, December 13th, shopping, holidays, consumerism, more, more, more. What you're inviting us to think about is so needed, right? Just slow down, look within, regardless of your financial status. I realize what I have a roof over my head. So there is a level of privilege that I'm employing to even dole out this advice. But I think what you're saying is so true. This idea that what we have is already within us, that we don't need more to feel better. And as a matter of fact, sometimes once we start to give things away, whether it's our time, whether it's pieces of our business, like you do so well, that we actually become more whole the more we give parts of ourself away. So
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me end it there before I just keep going for hours. Ralph, this was such an incredible, incredible conversation. I want to let all of our listeners know that we have links to both of your businesses in the show notes of this podcast episode. And I know that more and more individuals are looking to like myself, are looking to align the businesses they support with the values and ethics that they have. So I'm very much hoping that, individuals in your area will listen to this podcast episode and quite simply say to themselves, I really like that guy. He's really on to something. I'm
I
gonna
hope
take
so.
my dog to Dogs Day Out,
I
or
hope
to
so.
Downtown
I hope
Dogs.
so.
So
Yeah.
so I just really appreciate all that you do for our organization, all that you do for dogs in need, and I just really appreciate your perspective on life. And that could be because I agree with a lot of it, so of course I appreciate it, but you just seem like such a fantastic guy, and we're
Thank
just
you.
really, really lucky to have your partnership. So
Well, and
thank you, Ralph.
I'm honored to be a partner. We love the work that Street Dog does, and it could not be more
Yay!
important. So
Yay. And I know we have a bunch of people tuning in live right now and listening to the recording of this. Thank you so much. John Mark, our number one fan, he has said, Ralph, you are exceptional.
oh,
John Mark
wow.
doesn't just hand out those compliments. He
Well, thank you
doesn't.
very much. Thank
So thank you, Ralph. Please send Abby my love and tell Abby to then send Stephanie my love as well,
Yes,
since
yes, because
they're
I'm
in
sure they'll be
cahoots.
chatting later. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Ralph. Thanks again for your time. Really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
We got to have you come on to chat again about
Anytime.
capitalism and taking down the system.
I'm all for it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Ah, thank you,
Great.
Ralph. And thanks to our listeners. And I hope you have a great day, Ralph. Until
You
next
too.
time.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.